No, like this would be something that is not an AI, but a machine learning tool that is using an AI to see how the AI is generating language. I know I just said a
That
bunch of
sounds an
rubbish to
awful. That sounds like AI. I got a headache. I got a
you.
headache. Cold, cold, cold. It's cold and it's been cold and we're gonna get real cold this morning. So I grew up about 300 miles north of where I live now, and we had
Mhm.
real winters and real cold, and down here I had to get used to the blazing heat. And so we're gonna have another sputtering of winter here over the weekend, which we should. It's January. So yeah, I'm whatever getting ready for that means.
This is the first snow, right, of
But
the year? I mean, of both years? I'm not sure.
well, so we had like what's called a dusting last night, which is when you wake up and go, oh wow, it snowed. And of
Hmm.
course, there were tons of car wrecks and school cancelings and all of this stuff. When I was a child, and you know,
Hmm.
old people always say this kind of stuff, we never canceled school unless there was like 10 inches of rain of snow where a little kid couldn't walk through it. Yeah.
Hmm. If it was about
Yeah.
your little niece, they went, they were like, okay, stay at
Right.
home.
I mean, we might need to toughen these kids up a little bit. The world is not this kind. They're not going to let you stay home because it was cold outside.
Can you imagine calling into a job and saying that, hey, there's a dusting of snow outside. I'm not going to be in.
So tomorrow, what day is today? Today's Wednesday. So
Hmm.
Friday night is when the real cold moves in. I will get
Yeah.
5 calls on Saturday of people asking if we're going to open. I'm like,
Oh,
you
wow.
know, it's just
Hmm.
cold, right? It's not ice. It's not. It's just cold.
Hmm. Oh, those were the days I hated, though. Like the
Right.
cold and that wind.
Right. Well, but you could work from home with your job. You know, mine,
Hmm.
and you got to actually show up. And what's weird is you would think we would not be busy at those times. Totally wrong. That's when we're really busy because a whole bunch of other people got to call in sick. So they just come and go drinking all day.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. All right. Tell me what's going on in your neck of the woods. We've got some craziness over here as usual. So
We had like a weird drizzle in the city that I'm in right now, which is like close to Mumbai.
all right,
And
right,
um, it's like it's developing so much
right.
to so they're kind of building like their metros and all of that, which is their overhead subway system. And
Right.
it's like a mess when
Yeah.
when it's raining. Like it's not even dust on my shoes at times. I just think it's like
Oh.
cement, like liquid.
Wow. Progress. That's the smell of progress. You getting asthma from the cement. That is the smell of progress. Yeah.
Sean, this is human
Um,
beings' fault. We have chosen
yeah.
to define success as anything chemical, anything we pull out of the ground, tear something down.
Right. So what was it? There was, and I don't remember which Native American chief it was. He said white people build or plant trees where there are no trees, and they cut down the trees where there are trees. We're just illogical. So
That is true.
I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm not saying he's wrong. Okay, so I had somebody send me this recording the other day of, and it didn't seem like it was a podcast. It seemed to be a radio show.
Hmm.
And this young blonde right wing person was talking about us getting a theocracy here and how great that would be. And it seems to have worked all over the world for thousands of years.
No. When
Yeah,
was the last time she watched the news or read a paper?
I know. Evidently, she only reads the paper somebody's giving her. I mean, I
Hmm.
really and truly, I am concerned. I get concerned when I hear people on the left go, you know, democratic socialism, all this, and you go, our client base isn't smart enough to know what these minute differences are in public policy and all this other stuff. Stop saying socialism because it's a
Hmm.
negative word in politics. And much like this girl saying stuff like that, she's probably trying to make a name for herself. But is that the name you want to be associated with? You really wasn't dumb enough to say as a female that you want a theocracy?
See, that's the thing, right? A lot of times when I see people like that, I'm like, hey, you're not doing the entire gender any favors by being on air. You're kind of sending them backwards. But
Right.
there's some when there's some misogynist dude going there. This is why we never let them vote, folks. Look at that.
Right. And that's where that goes. So we've got a guy in Stillwater, Oklahoma. He's a little short guy with Napoleon complex. And for those of you who don't know what that is, they walk around with their chest puffed out, and he carries a sidearm all the time and all this stuff. He's like 5'2", so nobody's afraid of him until he acts like a lunatic and manages to have a gun in his belt. So, and that's legal in America these days. But he wants to repeal the 19th Amendment in America. And he tells crowds of, not crowds, his crowd, 5 or 6 women that he wants to do it, but they don't bother to double check and see what it means. And that's when women were given the right to vote. He thinks you could keep the country conservative here if we quit letting women vote. I really wish the stuff I'm saying was crazy or I was fake, or because it sounds like it.
See, sometimes I have to remind people that,
So
hey, sometimes
guy.
Sean and me aren't making fun of anything. It's just that we are reporting something we heard.
Yeah, no, it's just the news. Right. It's just the news. So I've had a couple of run-ins with this guy over the years. And he hangs out with the Moms for Liberty crew, and but he's not in their group, if that makes any sense. He's a big Second Amendment guy, but down here, no one cares whether you have a gun or not. I mean, it doesn't matter anymore. We are so pro-gun in Oklahoma. The NRA, the National Rifle Association, packed up and moved somewhere else. They didn't need to be here anymore.
Yeah, they might have signed all the membership targets that they needed for the next 5-year plan that they had. Right. They just left.
So they moved on. Yeah. And being Irish, I'm not anti-gun since the English had them and we didn't. You guys know how that works out.
Just marching into guns, Sean. I know what that is.
I know. So I'm trying to figure out a way to handle folks like that. But this is so lawyers would call it squeezing the orange, and you see if any juice comes out. How hard do you have to squeeze it? And so you say intolerable, insufferable stuff, and see if it gets any traction. And it really is a political philosophy on how to do things, and you test market it. Like, if nobody says anything, that means we can move forward. We're getting fleeced, bro. We're getting fleeced.
I know. On a different note, to give you some news on, do you know that there are actual AIs that read through Supreme Court justices, all their history of decision making?
Oh, wow.
To guide the future justices so that they do have precedent?
Oh, that's nice. Where have they been the last 5 years?
It's been here, but then it's been here, which means that it's gone through all the modules that are the court's decisions. But the weird part about it, and the doubt I had, was, weren't there some of those decisions done like back in the day where something was right, which no longer is right?
Yeah. So the concern, and this is, you go in and try to change precedent. And if precedent is a moral issue, it's up to the morality of that specific court. And that's why that electronics manufacturer in Chicago put his original money towards the Supreme Court. So anything that they did in the easy to buy Senates and Houses across the United States would not be knocked down by a friendly court. And I am Catholic, and there are 3 Catholics on that court, and you should never have that kind of a margin, because we don't have that kind of a margin in the United States. So we shouldn't. The court needs to look like the people.
What is the word representative democracy mean anything, or is that just sitting there somewhere?
I think it was a great theory at one point, but we do not have it anymore. And I'll give you an example, and I'm not talking bad about American politics. People just figured out how to play the game better. So every state here gets 2 senators and then a series of Congress people, depending on how many people you have. So they represent a specific amount of people in the U.S. Congress. And that's why the Congress is so much bigger. So a state like Oklahoma, where we only have 4 million people in the Senate, has the same power as California, which is the world's third or eighth biggest economy, depending on
Country.
which, right,
Technically, it could be a country in Europe that can.
right, right, and bigger than most of them as well. And Texas only has two, but they have different laws down there that allow private people to give as much money as they want to elections. It's just weird. So we're a conglomeration of countries held together by this United States deal. But yet each state does operate independently to a point, unless you're so bad that the federal government has to step in.
Some of those states are actually proud when the federal government steps in, Sean. That is their selling point to their base.
Right. Oh God, yeah. So I don't know where that ends up. You know what I mean when I say I don't know where that all ends up going. But Supreme Court justices are there for life. We have some very young ones. This is called the Roberts Court. Even when the guy came in, he didn't have any experience, and that was the start of, So I'll give you my example. Catholic Church pre-plague had the smartest, brightest people running a church. They did, because they had the pick of anybody they wanted. Those priests had to go give last rites to everybody dying of the plague. So what happened?
Died off.
They all
with
died.
The plague.
So right. And so you get these new people in that somebody suggested or was a cousin or something like that. And I feel the same way about where we are on the hey, the Supreme Court is at the lowest confidence in the history of the United States, in the history of the country. That needs to mean something. And it ain't good.
I know. See, anytime I bring up a topic, we somehow end up back into some political theme.
I know. Well, it is. I suppose. I mean, you do have a guy that's in politics on your show.
So, Sean, this is my own damn fault.
Right. You can't be mad that you drive a red car when you bought a red car.
Okay, so here you go. Here's another piece of information. There was a university that's in Oklahoma that reached out to us to build them out some sort of tool which would detect AI generated content in their learning management systems that they use in the universities. So the online portals that the students use to submit shit, they want to see if we could build a tool in there that would detect AI generated content. Right.
Well, I mean, so let me ask you this. When microwave ovens were invented, a lot of restaurants had one in the kitchen, but never admitted that they had one in the kitchen. I mean, shouldn't we use the AI tools to a point? And what is that point? And what are the rules? Because my daughter told me, she goes, everybody thinks you're a magnificent writer because you use AI. And I go, yes, I am a magnificent writer because of AI.
Yeah.
And she goes, yeah, but that's plagiarism. And I go, no, it's not. And then I really did look up the definition, and I do present it as my own. So yes, it is plagiarism.
But you do know that. So I felt bad for a second when I was trying to tell them how it's going to be done, for the sole reason that if I was a student, I would hate me.
So what you're going to have to use an AI tool to find AI. I mean, there's your irony.
No, this would be something that is not an AI, but a machine learning tool that is using an AI to see how the AI is generating language. I know I just said a bunch of rubbish.
That sounds like AI. I got a headache. I got a headache. I mean, I think it's funny that people don't understand this is already here.
Yeah.
If I know how to use it, and I'm a 60-year-old guy that writes cookbooks, everybody else knows how to use it. The thing is, do you choose to?
Yeah.
Is creative writing ever been J.D. Salinger just sitting in his hunting cabin writing? Or was he always writing letters to young girls that were inappropriate, and he was always hiding out? I mean,
Mhm.
Is that better than maybe a couple of weeks of running your manuscript through AI and see if they have any better ideas? Because
Yep.
they might. So I'm a pro AI guy, obviously, because look, in business, the advantages is being cheaper, better, more nimble. If you're not accepting AI right now, you are living in the we didn't have hot water era where you got to boil it on the stove.
So even the universities, right, to an extent, they should let them, like, if it's like over 90% of the paper is generated by an AI, the lecturer can be like, yeah, please get the fuck out of here.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. What are the rules? Because it's the future. It's naive to act like it's not the future, and it's right now as well. So if I'm in a creative writing class, who creates the best book with the tools at hand? Because it's okay to hire somebody to rewrite your book, but it's not okay to run it through an AI generating deal and see if you can find some ideas. I mean, that is your book being rewritten. That is two sides of literally the same coin. And of course, I'm trying to justify it because I use it. So I did a bunch of speeches, or a bunch of speeches were written before the Democratic convention here in Oklahoma. And that guy used an AI tool that was like a third generation one. And those speeches were John F. Kennedy worthy speeches.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, they were phenomenal. And they were subtle, things that Southerners might lack sometimes when they're in politics, because they just want to get the crowd riled up. I mean, these were pensive, well thought out, well written. So as a performer, don't I want the best material?
True.
Yeah. I mean, so my biggest problem is I didn't know how to turn on or off the router this morning. You think AI is
yeah, I did have that conversation with you where I was like, can you restart the router? And you're like, I don't know how to do it.
I don't know. Well, how do I do that? You turn it on or off. And if anything was ever that simple, we would do it every day. So, but of course, there were some complications. Look, the challenge for anybody. So if you're an older person with onset of Alzheimer's or Parkinson's and stuff, and you knew how to use ChatGPT, wouldn't you write your children and grandchildren some really lovely letters if you understood how to work it?
Yeah. See, to be very honest with you, there are times where things that I've written in the past, there have been a group, I've been in a writer's room, Sean, which means there were another 6 intelligent people who wrote elegantly sitting there with me, who polished it before it went into print.
Right.
So how much difference is that to me talking to the ChatGPT or an AI and figuring the same thing out? Because I still have writers' rooms where I call 3 people and I'm like, hey, this is the joke, this is the punchline, what the hell is it missing? They tell me what was going on. And so they know that I knew what direction I was going in just to frame it. Wouldn't that be the same as me using somebody else's intelligence to figure out my problem at hand?
It is exactly that. What the fear for anybody. Okay, so my oldest son was going to be a graphic artist. And then I showed him the website Fiverr. And I go, you have to compete with this. These guys are doing this work for $5 or $10, maximum $20, or max $50 for professional grade work. Is this how you want to live? Now in America, they still want you to sales call and all that other shit. So you could make a living at it, but not a great one anymore. And so we have to accept that that's over. You got to move on and go, is being a regular writer in a magazine over? Does anybody read? Let's be honest. I mean, we have to Prager University, this fake university, is making a run at it because they do 3-minute videos. It's TikTok for right wingers. I mean, it's brilliant. So that's already here. It's not going away, whether it's fake or not. They don't even care. So we want the New York Times to still have a writer sit down and write it. Right? I mean, Do we want that? I mean, how can they afford to do that if nobody's buying their paper because they just pull a deal offline or off of WhatsApp? I mean, there's got to be an economic resource that makes sense there. You know, I hope that makes a bit of sense, but
does it?
You know, you can't solve that by having a writer do a live show. There's a reason that they're writers generally. You know, they're not that personable. Like, you can put me in front of an audience and ask me the same questions I used for AI generation, and I will give you a very similar answer, but the writing style will be different because I want my writing style to look like something specific.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you brought this up because Angelina and I literally have this conversation about every 3 times we talk. And my comeback is, oh, you're going to tell me how to write? God, the only one at this table that had a best-selling book was me. Huh. How's that for an ass
Way
move?
to be a dick to her.
I know. But isn't there something to that? You know, I hired ghostwriters and editors for my second book, and I gave the book to her, and she found like 3 mistakes, and I go, I asked you if you would do this job because you're better at it. She was like, well, you know, this and this and this, and I go, no, I couldn't find anybody better. I found the people available. What I wanted was somebody with your skills, and so what if she's the one with all the answers but doesn't want to do it? Why am I not allowed to go around her and go to AI?
Yeah. See, that's the thing, right? Like, it is being used to an extent now where I think you can layer them in different ways to get it to react in a particular way.
Right.
Which is very interesting and cool in a nerdy sense, to be honest. For the sole reason that you can get multiple little systems to learn different, say, subject matters. Which means that if you layer them correctly, and you know the logic behind the subject matter that they've learned, you would be able to create a more cohesive argument as an output, even without a human present there. Which is already happening. It's just that they haven't released it to us yet.
What you're saying is if somebody does their homework, they can be more ready to write the book. So I'll give you a good example. So if I were a political enemy of mine, they just have to go to our podcast, take all my stuff off of there, and I have hundreds of hours of radio and probably hundreds of hours of video. I am the easiest person in the world for them to do a deep fake with. I just don't think my job's important enough for it to matter. But if they wanted to take me out, but so now if you show a video of either you or me saying something we don't like, I just go, that's a deep fake.
Yeah.
Because none of us know. I mean, you really just don't know anymore. And you and I both worked in television. We can look at it and go, that is a dang good deep fake. Wow. It's worrying to me in a whole different way.
Sean, you're worried about it this way. I was just doing it. I was thinking about it in a more lazy way where I could do it, where I can deep fake an entire episode just because both of us are busy.
Right. And undoubtedly that software exists and it's good enough to pull it off. That would be something really interesting for the audience to go, okay, here's a deep fake. This is what it looks like. This is us for 20 minutes. Yeah. But once again, as a person that was a union actor, you know, I know all my stuff is out there. You know, do I care if somebody used it for a nefarious reason? Yes, that would bother me. But do I have any control over it? No. I mean, we just don't. And I don't know how do you how on earth is that fixable when it's a worldwide deal? There aren't worldwide laws. Hell, we can't get people to follow the laws here.
Yeah. See, I was actually talking to a friend of mine who basically runs this entire operation. And I was telling him about this problem. And he was like, why the fuck do you think you're so important that someone's going to take the effort of doing this? I was like, I know. Can I not worry about the hypothetical?
The only situation that I think this would matter for me is, you know, I have made some strong enemies, and if they wanted to figure out a way to take me out, but you also will have to get enough people to pay attention, and all of us are being hit 24/7 with something to try to take our attention. So you got to compete with that, and I don't know if I'm that interesting, to be totally honest with you. I'm like, well, you know, I'm a pub owner, so it's fun. Yeah. That's about it. Yeah. So I don't know where that stuff goes. And I really mean it. I just look and go, I don't know where that ends up. But in another 5 years, they're going to easily be able to manipulate anything. But I also would have, I would love to have had video or audio. I have probably audio of my mom, but of my parents, where you could have something more reminiscent than a photograph. Yeah.
Yeah. I would find
maybe
that
you could make them
creepy.
nice. Yeah, dads of another era. Maybe they could give you a compliment.
See,
As
that I
only
would
the
do for
children of
people like
immigrant.
who would, yeah, that I would do for people like us, where the dad would be like, okay, well done, son, and all of us in tears on one side.
We'd be like, what? What? Oh my God. And then he just sigh, just kidding. Get off your ass and get your stuff down.
Oh, I can do it in Dan's.
I
can do it with the way Dan told me, where it, psych, go laugh or cry in your own time.
That's awesome. That is really one of the best quotes. Here's this, but so I see that being a business option down the line. I see it being a business option for like, you know, the eventual 3D, which I'm seeing other 3Ds that look like they've got propellers on the inside, which are pretty interesting. Somebody, you know, the Americans love their dogs, and you can do 3D imagery of dogs, and they would pay out the wazoo for that. Where most countries, they eat dogs. We have the luxury over here. We keep them around until we need to eat them. So but I think all of that's going to be fascinating to see what it is. Here's the, from a person that never has really grasped how I write something on a computer here and it travels magically over to you over there, and you send something back to me in seconds.
Yeah.
What did we think was going to happen with all of this cool stuff? You know,
isn't there that famous comedian's joke where if he got sent back in time, it would be almost impossible for him to prove that he's from the future because he doesn't know how to explain any of this shit. He'll be like, we have something called the internet. They'll be like, well, how does it work? They're like, I don't know, man. It's on my phone.
It's on my phone. It follows me around. It never shuts down. I mean, think about just that itself. Never shut down. I mean, how has that happened over decades? You know, it's and yet nobody really. I mean, we get Google infrastructure, you know, about 100 miles from here, and it's in a valley where you can't really see it. You drive by.
Oh yeah, there's like a beautiful Google data center in Oklahoma. I've actually visited that facility, Sean. It's like, in that facility, you won't know which country or what day time it is. It is built that well and elegantly. You'll just think that you're somewhere else.
God, crazy stuff. So I am fascinated to see where it goes in policing, where it goes at the airport. You know, I mean, you got a full body scan with AI. Do I really want the idiot that has the job that was able to be unemployed for 3 months to get the job at TSA? I mean, honestly, AI just knock all that out in a second. But the other thing is, with all of this, with all of these tools, all of these things available, the internet, AI, and everything else, how come when I type my wife's name in my own text, it's still wrong 80% of the time?
Sean, that's because there was some point in time where the phone asked you, did you mean Kathy? And you hit the wrong one. So now it thinks that the actual one is the wrong one and has never learned that, oh no, he actually meant the one that I asked him. So once we get that fixed, I'm going to have more confidence. Now, yeah.
It's you know, I am in such an old school retail business People come in, they tell me what they want, we manufacture it, I bring it out to them, we present it as retail, we do an atmosphere, we do all this other stuff, all mixed together. And all of this makes me think this type of business is more the future than not, because people are going to need the human interaction. You know, and yeah, some people will be okay with an AI version of their first girlfriend. You know, she left them for a reason.
Oh yeah, those weird things.
Exactly. And that is, man, if you're willing to pay enough, they can make that right now. You know?
Sure, I'm pretty sure there's some Japanese company who's already delivered its prototype units to its clientele, and we're just sitting here thinking that, oh no, it's not happened yet.
Right. Oh God. I could easily, I mean, so, you know, do you go the nefarious end or the good end? I mean, there's, you don't get one or the other, you get both.
Yeah.
So for the college professors trying to keep everybody from using modern technology, they got batteries in this thing, Earl. You just turn it on and it goes.
Remember the time where they told you, hey, you better learn your multiplication tables because you're not always going to have a calculator in your pocket? I'm like, okay, fuck you assholes. Valuable years of my childhood wasted learning 12 into 7.
There is one thing that I would take from this is, what do we need to reorganize education to be? So that's the real thing we're talking about, is, do we still do this traditional education model? Because it really does take humans to be good at it. You can get an AI teacher and all this stuff, but once you get lost in that conundrum when you're already frustrated, that's going to be an issue. And we all know that's coming, because we've gotten rid of all the teachers, so we're going to bring in an AI version eventually, which is fine. You know,
see, we were talking about this system for the same thing. About the implications it would have in the justice system. You're talking about teachers. We were talking about lawyers who drag cases on for years through the judicial system just to have their retainers and earnings made. What happens if a system like this just comes in there and is like, hey, this is your course of action. Get somebody to go file this paperwork with a bar exam passed or whatever the hell, and they just follow that.
And so I would say the same thing for taxes, accounting. I mean, there's not a field this isn't going to touch. It's to what level and what is your expertise going to have to be. But look, I would always point this out. The bottom 25% are still going to have manual labor work available. I mean, you can have an AI-driven vacuum in your house, but it's $700. My children are free. You know, I'm not paying for one when I've got free. You know, people go, do you got a dishwasher? And I'd go, yeah, I got 5 of them.
Sean, think about all the times where you have asked me to lend you a hand, and I've just looked at what you asked me, and I was like, it's too heavy. I'm not bending down. Manual labor will always be there.
Right. Yeah, and it's important to look, and because those are the folks that are the easiest to scare. It's coming for your job. No, AI is not going to get up on your roof and do the roof. I mean, it's just, you might get some version of it that can drop some planks and stuff. Still got to have people there. So I see it affecting everything. You know what I see affecting everything more than that is lightweight cement blankets. So they can put this stuff over a steel building and then wet it down 3 times and it becomes a cement structure. Or you can do it over a balloon building and then take the air out of the balloon and you have this permanent structure. Dirt cheap, everything else, really pretty neat looking. I'd say that one's more important at this point. I'm losing you?
No, you're fine.
So what are we gonna use AI to solve? Because, you know, I mean, the internet has solved 10,000 problems and created 10,000 more.
This will do the same thing. It'll create 10,000 problems and solve 10,000, hopefully. Right.
Yeah, hopefully. I just look at it and go, it's a fun tool. And maybe here's the biggest problem with it. Somebody like me that is really not a great writer can be a great writer.
Yeah.
And that intimidates people that are great writers.
Mm-hmm. I was
And
just
what I
about
would
to
say
ask
is,
you, what about all the time I spent fucking learning the rules of grammar, Sean?
right. Well, and look, I always, people always get confused with me because I'm a relatively decent speaker, and they just assume that I can write like that, and I can't. I mean, I don't have the ability, for whatever reason. I just don't. And man, AI solves a lot of problems for me.
Yeah,
Really does. But isn't that who it's designed for?
yeah, to help people,
Is
right?
me,
If you look,
right?
if you look at it in my non-nefarious and kind of
Right,
tech evangelical mode, it is there to help
right.
people.
Yeah. Now, what they do with it, I mean, come on, you
Mhm.
got to say that about anything. Most of the medicines in the world are also poisons.
Yeah.
I mean, and is there always going to be a criminal element that takes advantage of this stuff? Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, let's quit acting like it's new. This shit's been going on since the beginning of time, man.
That is true.
So I'm interested to see where it goes, and I really legitimately mean that. In this little farce of a of an area that I work in government and everything, it's, hey man, all that stuff's got. We had a new guy start at our place as a city manager, and he streamlined a bunch of stuff, and I'm like, God, where's this guy been? Holy shit!
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and he's smart, he's witty, and all. And it isn't that he's cutting labor; he's just making everything a lot more efficient. So instead of you calling me, it just goes to a button on some deal, and then it magically goes to the right place. So,
Yeah.
think it through, brother. Think it through, man.
We're like 2 minutes out.